Hi, everyone. I'm Shaheen from the Content Mix, and I'm excited to be here with Joe Burford, Global Head of Marketing at Whalar, an influencer marketing agency. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
So, Joe, tell us, what is an influencer marketing agency? What does Whalar do?
Oh, great question. So we've been around for about 4 years now, which is quite old in the influencer marketing world. There's a lot of people out there that are getting into this industry, and it's exciting. I've been working with content creators and influencers for the last 10 years, and I've definitely seen a huge rise in interest around it, particularly from brands and clients who previously before hadn't understood what an influencer was or how they could work with them. So we call it our sort of trifecta of how we work with clients, which is creativity, technology, and talent. So we have a creative community that we work with. We have an award-winning platform that connects the Graph API from Instagram through to Whalar's platform. We also have the ability to take data from TikTok. And also we've just started working with Twitter officially, which is really exciting. And then we have our talent division. So outside of our platform, we also represent some of the world's best digital talent. So we can see it from both sides. We understand what it means for a content creator to want to work with a client. And we can also see it from the client's perspective through our campaigns.
Super interesting. It's like a really up and coming area where, now influencers are kind of homegrown celebrities. And it's interesting that there's an entire industry kind of like growing around that.
I completely agree with you. And as I said, I've been sort of in this world for about 10 years now, and it started very much as YouTube content, and then it's evolved, and the platform that seems to be the one that most influencers prefer to work with, particularly with clients, is on Instagram. But the rise of TikTok, particularly around the pandemic as a place to go for entertainment, has just been incredible. And I've really enjoyed watching a new player come into the market and entertain people in a way that brings quite a lot of joy very quickly. I would say that there's a lot of misconceptions around influencer marketing. And sometimes if I walk into a party or I meet people and I say I work in influencer marketing, they'll be like, oh no, those people that are constantly pushing products. And I have to kind of listen to them complain, be very polite, and then I'll kind of go into the other side of it, which for me is around amazing content created by at-home digital producers who, when I explain who these people are, suddenly like, oh, but they're not influencers. Like, no, they are. Because a lot of people think it's, just the Kardashians and it's that very superficial lifestyle that everyone wants to potentially have a piece of. But actually there's a whole world of remote creators out there that 5, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, would have been sat in a studio making amazing content in a very formal way. Now they're at home and they're using technology to really empower themselves and liberate themselves from a normal 9-to-5 structure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it sounds like you kind of got in at the ground floor on this industry. How did that happen? I mean, if you've been in it for 10 years, that was early days.
Really early days. I worked at the starting of social media, and that was mostly around forums and groups. So I had a kind of understanding and a love for talking to people. So that's kind of like how it started. I was working in a traditional digital role. I was told, oh, you're great at talking to people, Joe. Just start talking to people on Facebook groups and let's have a look at what we can build around communities on Facebook. So that's how it kind of started. I was working for an agency, and then a company called Talent House came along, and they've actually just partnered now with Snapchat. And it was the first time I'd worked with somewhere that was more community focused, and it was around creating content alongside a client brief. And that was 2011 at Talent House. And from there on in, I've just focused working predominantly with content creators, particularly in the arts, stop motion, cinematography, photography, and now we're seeing much more exciting things happen on long form content. So influencers working directly with streaming platforms to create original content. So it really is extremely fast paced. It evolves at a rapid rate. I'd say our presentations can change within every 3 months because things change so rapidly. Product updates from our partners, client work that is exceptional, that's pushing boundaries. So we're always adapting our communications when we talk to clients because things change so rapidly.
Absolutely. So, I mean, how did you get to Whalar, where you are now?
Oh, okay. So I was working for Twitter as a creator partner manager, and I was in the team that worked with the media partnerships. So they're focused very much on traditional media relationship with publishers and performers. And I was kind of taking care of the creators that were kind of growing, particularly at that time around Vine. I loved Vine. It was one of my favorite platforms. I think that's probably why I sort of have a bit of a joy for TikTok, because it reminds me of those days of kind of silly creativity. Things have gotten very serious on Instagram. And I think Vine had that sort of like weirdness that I think TikTok has really embraced. So I was there and I worked there for 3.5 years. And I saw from the sidelines this new agency come along. And I was so impressed by the quality of work coming out of them and also by their own brand. Mostly it's always been seen as, you put the creator's content out first, but the agency doesn't really have too much of a brand. Whereas Whalar went in and they created, the avatars. So each of us have our own cute little avatar. And lots of people, when we meet them at conferences, always say, how do I get an avatar? Like, well, you have to work here. So, or maybe do a panel with us and we'll make one just for you. So it had its own look and feel. And I think that's really a lot of testament to our head of design, Greg, who is in my team, in my marketing team. And he has created an identity of Whalar that is very distinct in the market. If you walk into any conference and you see a Whalar presentation on a big screen, you know straight away that it's ours through the look and feel of the content. And that really impressed me, because previous to that, I hadn't seen anyone entering in with such professionalism into the sector.
So, and now you're in charge of global marketing for the agency. So that means expectations are high, I guess. So how's it been like transitioning into that role?
So I was offered the role in February, and as I said, I was in a commercial role, and I was mostly behind the scenes and working with the commercial teams and working on creative strategy with talent at the heart of it. So being asked to have a more front-facing role was exciting for me, and it was what I wanted to do in my career. And along came the pandemic. So I've only been marketing in a crisis because I started the role pretty much first week of March. So we've had the pandemic, we've obviously had everything going around with civil rights and our reaction to Black Lives Matter, and now we're currently in the edges of the Facebook boycott. So a lot has been going on since I took this job. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so what's been your biggest challenge so far?
Oh gosh, out of all of those ones, every single one felt like nothing worse could happen until something else did. I would definitely say that the biggest challenge has been making sure that what we're doing is original. I would say that would be something that I really agonized over. We started doing a show called Whalar from Home, and it was really to put the talent on our roster front and center and have them tell their stories around what they were experiencing as creators and producers at home. And that worked really well because it wasn't really our point of view. It was very much putting the talent in front, and we were just facilitating that story. I think that I kind of agonized over is it's original enough? What can we do that's pushing the boundaries? But when you're dealing with a lot of kind of stress, people with families they have to contend to, with health issues, that I think putting that extra layer of, is this brilliant? Is this original? I probably could have enjoyed it a bit more if I'd have known that it was going to last longer, and that people were probably going to be bit more sympathetic to the fact that things were not going to be as cutting edge and as original as they normally are, because you can't, control the lighting or the shoe, or things happen, tech problems happen. So I think for me, I definitely beat myself up quite hard and put a lens of all the content we're creating and making sure that it was very high quality. And I could probably ease up a bit, actually. I could probably have done things a little bit more raw, rather than getting as stressed as I did at the start.
Mm-hmm. So I was curious, like your approach at Whalar towards marketing. I imagine you have to like practice what you preach. Could you talk a little bit about what channels you use, which ones are most important for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody that works at Whalar loves social content. I think it's a prerequisite for it. Lots of our talent and our staff as well actually have got quite high social followings. I am not one of those people. So, as I said, I've mostly been behind the scenes and I've always come at it from a more strategic eye. But I would say that our team do love TikTok. We are one of the few official partners of TikTok, which is great because we're part of a lot of their beta testing. And they give us a lot of great information on how the platform's evolving. And I think they've seen lots of learnings themselves through the pandemic and how much their uptake in users have shown them, what is trending. I think it's very important for my team to know what is popular and what other people are enjoying. And it shouldn't just come from our own little bubble of what we're into. We often take a deep dive into our platform and take a look and see what is performing well for outside of our own likes. Because obviously, as you know, what I get on my feed on Instagram is very different from yours. So you could be misunderstood to thinking, oh, this is a really great trend happening now. Well, actually, it's probably just something that you are potentially being served. So we take a broader view and we take a look at the API data from Instagram, and we're able to track and see people that are particularly growing, why are they growing, and those that why is their content engaging right now. And we can pull it out, work with our insight team, and start making some kind of decisions around what it is about this particular content. Is this a trend or is it just a moment?
Speaking of trends, I think like a lot of brands are really perplexed about how to use TikTok. Do you have any advice for like what's the right approach there?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that there's a real race to be, a first mover in this market and to really understand it. And there's no surprises. Some of the brands that have done well, makeup, beauty, fashion, sportswear, lends itself beautifully to it. But there's lots of other channels that do really well, particularly with more serious content around like the Washington Post. They do some great content, some other platforms as well that are more serious, are able to get across quite difficult conversations. The Black Lives Matter movement on TikTok has really used creativity, copy, fonts to kind of communicate stories in a way that is really emotionally engaging. So I think that's been particularly successful for them. If I had any advice to a brand, it would be to let go of the guardrails. Absolutely do not do anything that's hyper branded. That will not work. However, putting product front and center is great when you're able to use the product in a really innovative way. The app is great. The social functions for it and your ability to edit in app are fantastic. So the ability for creators to create great content with your product is a ton of scope there. So you can be product focused, but it can't be a really heavy brand message.
Absolutely, that's great advice. And then you mentioned the Black Lives Matter movement, and I noticed on your website right now that you have a campaign to kind of amplify Black voices. I think you guys are in a really unique position to be able to do that. Could you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when things were happening over in the States, I think we thought originally that this was something that was happening in America, and actually it wasn't. It's happening across the world, and it was really important for us to have a part in it. I mean, influencers are at the absolute cutting edge of what is happening at the moment. And a lot of our talent on our roster as well had an opinion, a lot of our staff, and we all wanted to make sure that the world knew that we were an actively anti-racist business. We had been doing some great work with diverse voices, some really amazing content with a whole range of brands. But what we weren't doing was we wasn't actually recording how many people of color were on these campaigns. So now one of our commitments is to measure that, monitor it, and record it, and to actually be very, very open and vocal about it. We're going to start going out to everyone that we work with and asking them to tag themselves on their ethnicity so that we can actively be very proactive in our approaches to briefs and make sure that we're surfacing great people. I think sometimes when you work with people, you always want to go back to the same people who produce great content. And I get it, because it's reassuring to know that someone is going to deliver for you. But you have to now be actively anti-racist and go even beyond that and look and find some people you might not have worked with, or some people that maybe you hadn't heard of their name before, and make sure that we're doing that, and to be very, very vocal about it. So yeah, it's been for me a really kind of a rewarding experience to work in a marketing role where I actually can have impact by putting my own values into the business and into the industry we work in, and it's been really important for me.
Absolutely, that's really cool. So looking forward to see like how that develops, because it's I guess something that's
Yeah,
going to be over time.
Totally, and it's not overnight. We're going to make some higher changes at senior leadership level as well, which I'm also very excited about. This is going to be a long road, and it shouldn't be forgotten. It should be remembered and kept working on. And it's the same thing, isn't it? If you don't measure it, it won't matter. So it's really important that we put this on the agenda, and it's always talked about.
Absolutely. I also wanted to ask you about what you mentioned before about, you said you're the only agency that's official partner of all of, like, basically all the major social media platforms. How did you guys manage that, and what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, I mean, it's great for us. There's a lot, as I sort of said at the start, there's a lot of competition in this area, and there's a lot of people starting small agencies, and they all have their own kind of USPs and values. But I would like to say that Whalar's the one that has taken a long-term view to be extremely professional and to work with the tech teams at all the partners and build true partnerships, not only at a commercial level, but also at a tech level. So we're working with TikTok at the moment to sort of help them with their API, because we have so much experience with the API from the graph of Instagram. How can we work with them? Twitter, as I said, and my old workplace, I'm a huge Twitter fan. I think if I had to genuinely have them all gone, and my one left would be Twitter. It's where I get my news, my opinions, my laughs, my friends. And I also build my own community around marketing on Twitter. So that's a new partnership for us. And we work with people officially, and we make sure that it's quite a process that we understand what the RFP is like from their side, what do they need from a partner, and we work alongside them. I think other agencies that I've understood out there, they work on a kind of scraping level. So it's fine. It does infringe the platform's rules of engagement. And we don't do that. We have an official partnership. So it means that things are a little slower. They take a little time to put things into place. But it means that our tech team are talking straight directly to the other tech teams.
Okay, super interesting. Did not even realize that goes on behind the scenes. Well, and I was just wondering also if you have any advice for like smaller businesses who are kind of overwhelmed by all I know these aren't your clients, but who don't maybe have the resources to be super active on all the channels. Do you have any advice on how you can be effective on social media with a smaller budget?
Great question. I think, it's an interesting one, because we are at Whalar working on some quite big scale budgets, but that wasn't always the case. It started out, and I think that starting out small is always a good thing. I would say that Facebook is a great place for return on investment, and we all agree that their advertising, the way they structure their ad platform, is extremely simple to use, and I think everybody can get something from that. If you have a small influencer budget as a client, and I was talking to you socially, I would definitely recommend working directly with the talent themselves. And I would look for people who have potentially talked about your product or have organically mentioned it. What that does involve, though, involves a lot of watching content. And I think that's one of the reasons an agency like ours is here, is that we have a robust team of people that are constantly watching content. And I think that if you do want to work with influencers, there is that trade-off. You can't just think, oh, that person looks cool, I'm going to just approach them and ask them to work on my brand. You would need to look at their content, understand what they post about, what their story is. And then the good news is they're all extremely excited to hear from a client or brand. Anyone in particular, anyone who's got an ethical message, I think you can really cut through a lot of noise and approach an influencer directly if you're selling a product or you have a service with an ethical identity. A lot of influencers are extremely happy to work with and cut their costs on those types of products. I think a little bit of legwork goes a long way.
Absolutely. And I was curious, being based in Europe, do you guys you work worldwide, right? Does that mean you work with people in all different languages? And
we do. And it gives us a great overview of what is happening in the world. Our clients are based all across the globe. We've worked with clients from China to Egypt through to Saudi Arabia and the States, the UK. And I think the reason that we pivoted so successfully at the start of the pandemic was that we frequently have never met our clients or influencers in the real world. It's always been like this. So we were able to move very quickly into our kitchens, and work just continued on in exactly the same way it always had. We have a great overview of what is happening globally, particularly on social media, where things are going. It's a really turbulent time right now, and we've just seen that India has banned TikTok, and there's lots of conversations around whether the US will go that way because of security issues in China. So it's extremely fast paced. Every you kind of wake up on a Monday morning and you think, what news is going to come in next?
Yeah, it's crazy times we're living in. Let's transition to the recommendations part of the interview. I wanted to ask you if you recommend any influencer who's doing great content.
Yes, I do. And I mean, I'm probably the best person to ever answer that question too. And I can reel off lots of different people. But one person I really like is Aja Barber. Her account for me is all about sustainability and fashion, but it's not about judging people or telling people they shouldn't do certain things and they should buy certain clothes. One of the major challenges I have with sustainability fashion at the moment is that it's very much geared to slim people that go from size 8 to 12, 14, and there isn't really much representation for people of color or different sizes. Aja Barber, she talks a lot about how to be a woman of color and be a more of a curve model, but also be sustainable with her wardrobe. So she's just super informative. She kind of does the reading for me, and then she digests it and then tells us, what her advice would be. And she also creates really beautiful content that is aspirational but also relatable. It doesn't feel that, I think the sustainability message can sometimes feel quite far away and quite exclusive, and she really brings it back to home.
So, it kind of goes to the point, I guess, of like some of the what do you think makes great content? I'll ask you if not put the words in your mouth.
I think what makes great content, it doesn't have to be super high quality. It doesn't have to be always polished. I personally really love more artistic, avant-garde, quirky style. That's my personal taste. But I think that really, if you were to give anyone advice, it would be good sound, good lighting, and a good message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. But it sounds like you were talking before about like wanting to, like how important it was to kind of have a unique take. And when you were talking about this example of an influencer, it sounds like she has like a really unique perspective that she's sharing. So yeah,
that's true. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of noise out there, and I think it's a funny thing. It's sort of like two sides to it, is that you do want to be original and have something unique, but also you need to be someone that people don't feel too far away from when they don't get it. So there has to be that layer of originality, but with a story that is relatable to our lives, because that's where we turn for social media. I would definitely say my kind of biggest advice is I always say go high, go low. So I subscribe to The Economist, and I read a lot of articles around the Financial Times, but then I'm straight on TikTok as well. so just keep your balance in social media, or going high and going low, because there's always inspiration in all of those areas that help you with your work.
And then for next on the recommendation list, a publication that you recommend besides The Economist, which you mentioned already.
Oh gosh, interesting. I mean, I'm a die-hard fan of The Economist. I love journalism; is so high quality for me, and it really has helped me through the pandemic with information that I trust. So anything a bit lighter than that. What else? Something probably more fashion related, like Refinery 29 or something like that, is quite cool, because I think what they've done really well is they've put women at the heart of conversation, and they've always been, from what I see, really open to unique, diverse voices.
Awesome. And you also mentioned something called Super Thinking when we were talking earlier.
Oh yes, a book. This is a book that I found, actually. I tell you, a publication I missed and I used to love was the In-Flight BA magazine. I think it's fantastic. And the business area in there was one of my go-to when I used to fly BA back in those days, those yesteryear days. And I always got great advice from it. And Super Thinking is about thinking strategies to help you make decisions quicker. Because I would say one of my probably things that I have to work on is I will overthink a real problem and try to come at it and make it a solution that no one's ever thought of before, or that is extremely innovative, when actually there's some models that can help you get to the heart of what you're trying to solve, rather than cause yourself lots of stress.
That sounds super interesting. I'll have to check that out. And then lastly, your favorite app at the moment.
Yes, I would say Headway. I stumbled upon Headway through must have been very appropriate retargeting advertising on Instagram, because it popped up as an Instagram advert, and it kind of like appealed to me because although I am an avid reader and I love to read, when I go out walking, sometimes I don't want to listen to music and I don't want to sort of follow a podcast. So these are books that can help you around self-development, career development, negotiation. They're kind of like summary points into 20 minutes, a little bit like this podcast. And it's just good, I think, especially now, to get out and to listen to something that's both relaxing and informative. And it can just really brighten up your day.
Well, yeah, there's another one that's famous that also does that, and I just can't remember the name of it now. So, oh well, no shout out to them. Get Headway. Yeah. But I used the other one, but I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, I think there's probably a few of them, and I think I was just being in marketing. I don't know about you, but I'm such a sucker for advertising.
Yeah.
So around there, I'm always very open to people advertising to me, and like, that looks good. So I downloaded it, and it's great for a bus ride in the city or a walk.
Yeah, it also, at least the one I use, it like gives you an idea if you want to read the whole book or not, right? It gives you kind of
exactly. Yeah. It does. And I think when you are an avid reader, there's only so much time, right? And you can, it's Netflix to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to fit everything in. Okay, so as we end up the interview, just wanted to ask if you have any parting advice. Especially, it could be interesting to hear any advice you might have for people who want to get into the influencer marketing space, because I'm sure a lot of people are interested in that. It's a very cool, cool industry to be in.
I would always recommend people get into the influencer marketing space because of the vibrancy and how fast paced it is. It's definitely a character. You're a type of character that likes change, that is interested in trends, how they evolve, loves pop culture, and also you absolutely have to love people. If you're not able to watch a lot of people talking about a lot of things, then don't get into this industry. But if you're like me and you're like a human magpie, as my mother used to always call me, I was always meeting new people and collecting new friends across the world. That was who I was already before social media came along. So it was just an extension of who I am. So if anyone wants to get into it, I think you have to love people.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you so much, Jo, for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. It's been really fun. It's nice to talk to somebody who I don't work with.
Yeah, we're just coming out of quarantine, so it's unusual, right? But yeah, so thank you. And thanks everybody for listening in. For more perspectives on the content marketing industry in Europe, check out thecontentmix.com. And we'll be releasing a lot more interviews like this one every weekday with content and social media marketing professionals. So keep tuning in. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.